Welcome to the Doctors Who Read Stuff. We continue in Book 3 of Dune to find Chani is summoned under the guise of Paul. However, it wasn't Paul who summoned her. He has been in a comatose state for the past several weeks, and it was in fact Jessica who was unsure how to resuscitate him. After Paul awakens from his trance, he reveals that he drank the water of the Maker, where he learned of the terrible forces surrounding Arrakis. 5 legions of Sardaukar, the Baron, and even the Emperor himself have gathered above the planet, ready to attack. Paul decides to use the cover of a sandstorm to begin his attack on the opposing forces, blowing up their shield wall. Paul then receives word that Sietch has been raided and many of its inhabitants have been killed, including Paul's son Leto. Join us as we dive into this reading and give our thoughts on the coming action. Let's go.
Okay, and welcome to the Doctors Who podcast. My name is Chris.
I'm Chip.
I'm Brian.
Yeah, we said it last time, but the Herbert Lanch is in full effect. But we decided not to call it the Herbert Lanch because it sounds weird.
Yeah, we can call it the Herbert Sandstorm or something.
Yeah, there we go. Before we jump in, we're going to take a minute to recognize Nick Eimerman Design Company, who did all of our logos as well as our overlays for our videos. If you need any graphic design work done, we invite you to visit N. Eimerman Design Company at neimerman.com or over on Instagram at @neimerman_design. All right. Why don't we jump right in? Chip, are you ready to give us your thoughts?
I don't know if I'm ever ready, but this is, again, kind of building on what we said last week. This is really, all the pieces are moving into place. So now we've got Chani returning to the fold. We've got Paul drinking the water of life, which is a huge moment for him because he's all of a sudden, I guess he's been unconscious for 2 weeks, so that's why Chani's coming there. But when he wakes up, he has these kind of thoughts, and I really liked the part where he talks about giving and taking, and that you can't take without giving, and you can't give without taking, and this whole balance of these different forces. So, we realize that Paul's really coming into his own here. And then I really like how Herbert uses the backdrop of this sandstorm, this great great grandmother of all storms, as the backdrop for the assault on Arrakeen. And the coming of the storm is really, it's the coming of Paul. So he's really coming into his moment to take back what was rightfully his.
Oh, man, this is such a good section, and there's just so much building. That entire second half of these 2 sections to the last section, it's just all in preparation for the last like 50 or 60 pages. There's just so much good buildup, but you can definitely tell the tension is there, and I really like the relationship between Chani and Jessica. It's like it's all the things that married spouses find with their in-laws, like the uncomfortable nature of being accepted by your in-laws and being summoned by Paul, only for it to be Jessica instead. It just showed that realization of the dependence that Chani and Paul have, but also Chani and Jessica. So it really felt real. And I don't know, like I just like the idea of all of this building. Like, you can tell with all of the things going on above, Paul now not only sees the future, but now he's seeing the present, and he can see the amount of people up in the atmosphere that are ready to kind of lay their claim on the planet. It's just heavy. It just feels like something is about to give. And with the great great grandmother of all storms, you wonder, with that give and take notion, if like the fury of a mother, the protective fury of a great grandmother kind of like retaking the plant. Like, I don't know, it just feels like something big is about to happen. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, like, so Paul coming out of this trance, like, the Fedakeen think that he's in a holy trance, preparing himself for the battle to come, right? And he comes out of this thing and he's like, I can see the now. And Brian, to your point, he's like, well, I can see they've got 5 legions of Sardaukar, and the Emperor's up there, and the Baron is there, and like, I can even see the Baron's favorite boy who has some fungus on his little toe. So he's just, he can see all of this, like, and it's just bonkers. And it's interesting that they're all out there, because the guild that depends on the spice for the navigators are probably like, there's something going on here. So it's, that whole political situation is interesting. The part about the giving and the taking was very interesting as well. But I think what I found most interesting about this was, like, Paul's like, yeah, we know how to destroy all the spikes, which means we hold all the leverage. And Chani, as he's saying this, is like, well, that's blasphemy. And then when they're overlooking Arrakeen and the storm starting to come in, there's some great interaction between Stilgar and Gurney, where I think they start to realize that they're pretty similar, even though they're maybe not quite eye to eye yet. They're starting to come together, and I think the scene is really well done. So, yeah. All right, let's start with this whole Kwisatz Haderach business.
Boy, that, I kind of got a, I don't know, like there's a little bit of Star Wars influence, like influence from here. Excuse me again. That feeling like you have, two separate but equal parts. Like the light side always has to equal the dark side, and you have these two, and then you try to have someone who is above, and that is Paul's position, kind of overseeing it. Like, it's like the world trying to be in balance. It feels like for so long the problem with the planet has been it's been out of balance. You've had these desert conditions, you've had people who are just without water, like really life doesn't exist normally here. And it almost feels like this is the writing of an entire planet. Like, it just feels like there is something coming into balance with this. And I feel like Paul is realizing that as his role is to be the balancer, and that's why he's kind of making these decisions.
I think it's cool what Herbert's created here too, where he's got this power. Paul's got these powers, but there's a male side to this power and there's a female side to this power, and you can see that played out in other franchises, other books. So, like Brian, what you were saying, the light side and the dark side of the Force. The other one that it really draws me to is the Wheel of Time, where you've got the one power, but you've got Saidin and Saidar, so you get the male and the female side of the one power that balance each other out. So I don't know, I don't know of any other books before this where that was really present that I've read. I'm sure there's probably books out there, and if any of you watching this know of other influence that may have influenced Herbert, please let us know, because that would be kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind going and reading some other stuff at that point. But anyway, I like that aspect of it, and I like to see kind of the influence that Herbert has kind of had over other stories that have been told since.
Now, if I'm understanding correctly, the Reverend Mothers can see all the way down through the female lineage of their family, and they can interact with those other lives. And I believe Paul is the first one that's been able to do that with the male side, and then can also access the female side as well, right?
That's what I
Yeah.
read, if I
Yes, he
remember right.
transcends
Yeah.
both.
Because he can go to that place that the Reverend Mothers
Yep.
can't look,
Yeah.
which I would assume is like the male
Right.
side of
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
So
But I don't know if that's where, when you're talking about the spice users, is that where the guild navigators and these other heavy spice users, on the male side, are they able to look and see this? So when Paul did this, was there a kind of a ripple
Sure.
effect through the guild and through these other heavy spice users that were like, oh crap,
Well,
something's going on?
the impression I got, and I have no idea if this is actually true, like the guild navigators use something similar to Paul's prescient abilities to plot their courses. So their ability to kind of look into paths in the future would maybe alert them to the fact that, hey, something's coming down the line and it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my assumption as I read this. So I'm not sure. It would be interesting though if what he did created such a repercussion that it was felt by, maybe the Bene Gesserit, the Guild Navigators. So yeah. But it's
Yeah, because I mean, if we recall from what I think it was very early, was it early on when Helena told Paul that any man that's tried to drink the water of life is
Yeah.
Paul said, have they tried and failed? No,
Yep.
they've tried and died. So
Hmm.
so he's the first that we know of that
Yeah.
actually drank it, survived, and came out the other side.
That's what makes him
The Kwisatz
Lisan
Haderach.
al-Gaib, he who can be many places at once. I love it when they give these messianic figures all these cool names. I really like that.
Yeah. You want one of those names, don't you?
Will you guys make one up for me? Like, Randall Thor was he who comes with the dawn, and he had a bunch of them, like Lord of the Morning and all this jazz. And Paul gets a bunch of cool ones, and I feel left out. Let's be honest.
You're just
Right.
Chris, but you're not just Chris.
Well, yeah,
we'll do some thinking on that. So
Yeah.
if anybody listening has any good ideas of what we can call
throw
Chris
some suggestions
in the
down in the comment box.
and make
We
them
might
good.
get some
it
really
clean,
interesting
please.
ones.
So it seems to me, reading the end of this section where he talks about destroying all spice on the planet, and then reading the section on the storm where you start to get kind of an inkling as to what his plan is, that this is very thought out and this is very intricately done, because the destruction of the spice is, I think, twofold. It's bait to get everybody there. It's also leverage, because he's like, well, you can do what I want you to do, or I will cripple all your ships, basically. You will be stuck.
Well, and he's got, again, we talked about the confidence in Paul the last episode, but here we see it again that, I think, I can't remember if it was Stilgar or Gurney or both, we're all worried about, we've got all these guild ships up there. We got the Emperor ships, we got the Harkonnens. And Paul's like, well, the guild's not going to do anything. The guild is worried about the spice. They don't care who controls Arrakis as long as they get the spice. And if we have the ability to destroy the spice, they're just going to sit back and let this play out, and they'll figure it out later. So he knows that the guild's not a threat. We've already seen how the Sardaukar, he has no fear of the Sardaukar and the Emperor, and I assume the same is true for the Barons. So it's going to be fun to see where it goes from
One thing
here.
I mentioned was while they were scoping out Arrakeen, there was a fun interaction between Stilgar and Gurney. So, Paul is telling Gurney that he hasn't lived with the Fremen dream, and Gurney scowls about it, and Stilgar, why is he so gloomy? And Paul says, he's always gloomy before a battle. It's the only form of good humor Gurney allows himself. So, and then Stilgar says he talks like a Fedakeen after he says, it glooms me much to think on all the poor Harkonnen souls will dispatch unshriven. So it's just, there's a lot serious going on, and just interjecting that little bit of humor and that levity and giving us some more of that developing relationship is, I think, very well placed. So, yeah.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, the plan, I really like the plan. What I didn't understand, I'm guessing he was able to see into the future to know the storm was coming, where it would be coming, because, you know, it had to come through precisely at the point to come at the shield wall, so they could use the atomics, which Paula was convinced the other houses wouldn't retaliate because they didn't directly use the atomics on human life. They blew up a big rock wall. It was a sticking point that he was arguing confidently would be okay, but really inside he didn't feel as confident as he was sounding. But yeah, but like the blowing up of the shield wall, the pushing through of the storm basically would cripple their shields, and if it didn't cripple their shields, well, with the shield wall down, we haven't gotten this far yet, but I would imagine sandworms are going to come when they sense those shields. So
Yep.
I don't know. I just the plan feels very deliberate and very well laid out, probably because Paul can see the future and knows how some things are going to transpire. So he cheated.
That usually helps. Use your advantages.
And I can't remember from prior readings or if there's any relationship between the sandworms and a storm too. That, you know, it seems like a storm would have a lot of rhythmic vibrations and thunder and wind that would attract the worms. So, you know, maybe that's how Paul knows that the makers are coming, you know, along with the storm. And it's...
Well, if you think about the like the storms here in town, it's like whenever it rains,
worms come out of the
worms kind of come out.
True. Yeah. There was, so at one point in this section, he let the Sardaukar prisoners go, and they ran back and told everybody. And
I think he did that last section, and then now this time they actually get to. He did.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, anyway, they get there, and they say what's going on.
Yeah.
And
they get to the point.
Paul wants to see what's going to happen, because apparently, once the Emperor learns that there's still an Atreides alive that has been, you know, amassing this army, he could choose to raise the Atreides flag to show support. He could choose to raise the Harkonnen flag to choose to support the Baron. But what he does is he raises the flag for, is it Chom? Yeah.
Chom company,
so basically saying, hey, I'm basically gonna side with Prophet on this one. I don't really care as long as one of y'all get the spice production back in order. So
Prophet, Profit, right?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
The Prophet.
Yes.
But
I wonder what this means. I wonder what this will mean for the Baron, because the Baron was pretty much telling everyone, "Oh, I'm certain that Paul is dead," and people were like, but you never found a body." But I know he's dead. So how's this going to come back and bite the Baron? Like, I feel like this is kind of a bad omen for him, because the Emperor wasn't exactly pleased with him. That's why he never allowed the Baron to select an heir.
It's kind of like, I know there's election fraud, but I can't prove it. But I know it's there.
It just feels like something is going to happen.
But there's some things about the Baron that remind me of some of our current politicians. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
Oh. One thing I really liked with this section was the call back to Paul's father, because it was a matter of, the great grandmother of all storms was rolling in, and their equipment for surveying the land was still outside, and the men were like, "We need to go gather the equipment." And Paul's like, "Nope, you're going to leave the equipment outside. I care more about my men than I
Sure.
do about my equipment, especially on a day like today." But just that nice
Yeah.
callback to the things that the Fremen liked about his father
Yeah.
was that he was a man of the people and not of things.
Right.
That's a great comment there. Great observation.
Yeah. So the last kind of thing that happens in this section as the atomics go off and the shield wall blows up is they get word that the Harkonnens have raided the Sietch, and the communication is garbled, and they can't hear much. They reference Alia and they reference Paul's son, but he knows exactly what happened. He's like, "My sister's a hostage, and they've killed my son." And it says, "He felt emptied, a shell without emotion." And then a little bit later, and Paul thought, "How little the universe knows about the nature of real cruelty." And I was unsure, because you could take this a couple of ways. That he is going to show the universe the nature of real cruelty, because he's sick of the universe taking those he loves, or he's saying like, I've experienced so much loss and nobody knows what this is like, which is more of an emo response, which I'm not really getting from him. So I'm guessing it's the first one. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Which, if you thought that last storm was big, just wait until the storm of Paul
Right.
Atreides comes through.
Yes. So, yeah. We have one more conversation left of this book. There's about 35 pages left in the book. So we are going to finish this up next week. And then the week after, we're going to do just a quick recap, our overall thoughts of the book in its entirety. And we're also going to reveal which book we're going to read next. So,
I have no
honestly,
idea.
me neither. Maybe we'll all find out together.
It's a good idea. We should probably think about this.
We've got some time. So please sound off in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. We also invite you to subscribe. Use the bell to get notifications when we post new content. Not only do we do these weekly discussing Dune episodes, but we also are releasing some other shorter reviews as well. Again, it's been fun. We hope you've had fun, and we look forward to seeing you next time as we finish up Dune by Frank Herbert.